CHRO to CEO. Isn't that an amazing journey? And perhaps most of us are not aware of too many CHROs who become CEOs. And that's the reason why I'm very excited about today's conversation. And I have with me someone really special. Please welcome Amit. Malik, Amit, it's great to have you here today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So Amit is, was the CEO and Managing Director at Aviva Life Insurance until very recently. Now he's had a career-long stint as an HR professional, and he made that switch into becoming a CEO. And I'm very excited about today's conversation because we're really going to be talking about what does it take for HR professionals to really make the cut and become a CEO as they move in their career path. So great, Amit. So Amit, I thought maybe just to warm up the conversation, it might be great if you can just share, your own journey as an HR professional.
Thanks, Thomas. Thanks for having me. As they say, once an HR professional, always an HR professional at heart. That's what I am. Yes, I've moved into doing the COO and the CEO role. I started my career way back in '99, 23 years from now, and I started with a company called GSK. Where I went on and sold Horlicks in the street of Azamgarh to Madurai.
Oh, really?
I then, forayed into financial services, into American Express, and I did that whole piece of selling a credit card to someone in Old Delhi, selling a credit card to someone in Connaught Place. Then I moved into AB and Amro from there. I sat in the lobby of the bank, being a customer service, sat behind a teller, understanding how the customers behave.
Right.
Moved into Aviva in 2012, been there for 10 years now. And I've gone and sold insurance, had a debate with customers on why mutual fund and insurance, which is better, which is not. So it's been an interesting journey, and all along I've done my own HR piece in Malaysia, Sri Lanka, learned a lot of stuff, and I have a lot of friends and mentors to thank for.
Yeah, that's wonderful journey, Amit. So I just wanted to now really look at how the role of the CHRO has changed, because in the last couple of years, thanks to the pandemic, suddenly organizations have become very employee centric, and also a lot of initiatives had to be done, to get people to collaborate, and employee experience became a very critical component, learning, upskilling, and what have you. And obviously this entire HR profession has changed, but I think it has had a significant impact on the CHRO, right? So how do you think the role of the CHRO has actually changed in the last couple of years?
So, I have been fortunate to be a part of the HR function when it has been evolving from '99 to today. So from personnel management to human resources to human capital to now most people call it people organization, people function, like we did in Aviva. So I think that's the evolution of a function. And it's in line with how the CHRO's role has evolved, Thomas.
Right.
If you look at it from someone who will do the IR and the industrial relations and the settlements to someone who's strategic, seat on the table, to now being a strategic partner to not only with the leadership team but also to the board. And I think that inflection point has become very, very important in the role of the CHRO. And if you look at last couple of years, people have always talked about performance, people have talked about policies. I think that shift has happened now to unleashing the potential, to understanding not only the future of the workplace but also the workforce, how things are changing. And this whole pandemic has accelerated that change from a CHRO standpoint. The boards are now looking at it and saying, can you tell us how the workforce is going to change? What's the expectation? And I think the future is far more intriguing, because the moment the robots come into the workplace, I think it's the CHRO's role to say, how do we then have a workplace which has robots, which has people, which has hybrid workforce, and the complexities. The other element that has come in is managing multi-generational workforce. When I started in '99, there were only 2 levels of workforce. Today you have 5 levels of workforce: Gen Z, Gen X, Gen Y, whatever is coming in, and I think that's added to the complexity.
Yeah. So I think a lot of CHROs may have even struggled with this transition, because a lot of things happened very quickly in the last couple of years. But having said that, Amit, you made that significant cut from a CHRO to the CEO, which I think is not very common. Hopefully we will have a lot of it happening in the future. But what did it really take, for you as a CHRO to become a CEO?
And I think, like you said, thank you for those words. But there are many people before me who have opened the path for me, so I want to thank them for doing that.
Yeah.
Yes, I think what is the difference is, when you are in a function,
right,
you tend to think like a functional person, a functional expert. At some point, you have to you have to transition from being that functional expert to being an executive. Sure. And I think that's when the organization starts to benefit and see you in a different light. Right. You know, if you are invited for a meeting and you are the HR head, or you are the marketing head, or you are the supply chain head, if you only talk about your function, then you are a function specialist. How do you look at all parts of the organization? Right. How do you look at customers? How do you look at distribution? How do you look at customer service? How do you look at products? And then, I have always tried to do this. I've always tried to understand the financials. How do we make money? Right. Early on in my career, I used to say, if I sell one bottle of Horlicks, how much we earn from that bottle of Horlicks. So when you write 100 rupees check, how much of a product you have to sell to earn that 100 rupees. That's the financial. That's where I have learned, and that's how I got my tooling. But I think it's about looking at an executive role, which I played, and then understanding your customers. I would travel to the branches and not only talk to the employees, but meet agents, meet customers to understand them. And I think that gives you a perspective that then helps you to position. In my case, I think that perspective gave board the confidence to give me more responsibilities.
No, I think that's fantastic and very, very refreshing to see that you were able to go beyond an HR function, because very often you see in meetings that someone who's doing a certain role sticks to talking about what they do, and they tend to limit their contribution. But I think it's so refreshing. But we should celebrate this success, and I'd like to do a little song to celebrate how CHROs can become CEOs. Now, obviously, the song has nothing to do with CEOs, but it's a song that is a fun song. And last week I sang it with a bunch of my musician friends in a park, and we had more than 100 people as an audience. So here we go. Down the way where the nights are gay and the sun shines steady on the mountain top, I look a trip on a sailing ship. When I reach Jamaica, I made a stop, but I'm sad to say on my way. Won't be back for many a day. My heart is down, my head is turning around. I had to leave a little early. Thanks for time. Well, that was fun. I just sang one. Otherwise, we would have been singing for the next 5 minutes. So, really, what you've achieved would be truly inspirational for a lot of HR professionals, right? So, I was just wondering, what would be your guidance and advice to someone who's just starting his or her career as an HR professional in an organization, and what are some of the things they should start doing early in their career, and as they progress, to really, if they have that vision of becoming CEO one day?
I'll be a little provocative.
Sure.
For all the young HR professionals, first advice is the ultimate goal is not to become a CEO.
Okay.
Let me tell you a small story. When I was my first day in MBA college, SIB in Pune, there was this big industry veteran who would come to give an introduction talk, and he said, all those who want to aspire to be a CEO, raise your hands. I did not raise my hand.
Oh, wonderful.
Because I at that time did not know what it takes to be a CEO. And I kept asking myself that question, and that gentleman then said, all of those who have not raised their hands are losers in life. And I was like, okay, it doesn't matter, we'll see where it takes.
Yeah.
So that's my first one. But if you really want to go down that path, then a couple of things I think first and foremost, you should demonstrate courage and conviction.
Yeah.
Courage and conviction as a leader, to be courageous enough to say what you want to say, and to be convinced enough to why you are saying. It's not about opinion, it's about logic, it's about data. Second is, very early on in your career, you should do a cross-functional stint to evaluate for yourself whether you like doing something outside. I did it very late in my career.
Sure.
I wish I would have done it earlier in my career. And you should go in and out and come back, because that will not only make you a better HR professional, I think it will also make you a better professional, and you will then know whether you are interested in doing business or not. Right. Don't leave it too late.
Yeah.
The third is, I think you should then start to look at, like I said, you should start to look at and ask yourself to say, understand the organization, understand the dynamics of the wheels that churn in, understand the financials, they're very, very important, and don't shy away from metrics. Don't shy away from data, which is typically a lot of us tend to do.
Sure.
And I think if you do all of that and build on your people strength, because as a CEO, you would need that strength. You would need to be a people person. You would need to understand that element of leadership. I think if you do that, you're on the right track.
Yeah. And the reverse is also true, wherein a lot of non-HR people within organizations should look at stints within HR, right? And I'm seeing that trend. In fact, I've met quite a few CHROs who are moved in from other functions. So, is that a trend that you're seeing? Is that something where, is it, since HR is now being seen as more strategic, more business rather than a staff function, Is it attracting, let's say, a sales leader to move into an HR role? I mean, are you seeing some of those trends?
Yes, I am, and it's very welcoming. See, first of all, HR I think is the most welcoming function of all functions when you come from outside. Right? We just adopt you and we just embrace you and say you're one of our roles. I think that's a good advantage. But I think it's very important for people. See, we talk about saying HR person should do marketing, HR person should do ops. I think we should get people to understand people, and people function. Why it's important is because one is when you come in, then you understand the complexity of the role. You understand the complexity of people. Every employee is different and every employee issue is different. How do you manage the grey? See, it's easier to manage a black or a white. Anybody can throw a rule book. How do you manage the grey? How do you understand the challenges of working with multi-generational workforce? How do you understand the challenge of predicting capabilities that the organization will need 5 years from now? And how you are preparing the workforce? I think it's very important. So I think I'm all for saying people to saying come do a CHRO role, understand it, and then go back and do your business role. And I think it gives you a different flavor. It also makes every executive very well-rounded.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And finally, you spoke about metrics and how a lot of HR professionals historically have perhaps shied away from it. The other area where they have historically shied away is technology, right? Because technology has now become all pervasive. I mean, processes have changed. Everything has changed, and technology is playing a significant role in actually driving all that change. So, because a lot of processes that earlier that were manually being done are now being done by the machine, and HR needs to move to a different level really. So, how do you see now technology transforming the HR professional? Apart from the organization, how is it actually going transforming the HR professional?
So I think technology is already transformed the HR.
Yes.
Right? And yes, HR may not have been at the front foot of adopting technology, but over a period of last 3-4 years, a lot of technology is coming. I think, like I said, first and foremost, use technology to build your metrics.
Right.
Gone are the days when you would say, I would do this for the engagement or the culture. Today, you have the technology, you have the tools which gives you to measure culture, to measure the impact of values, to measure the impact of engagement. I think do that and use technology. The second is, we talk about culture, we talk about collaboration. There is technological tools which help you enhance collaboration in the organization. Make use of that. So that you can then demonstrate and say, if I want this investment, this is the result that I will give you. Let's do a CBA and I will bring value to the table.
Right.
The third is, which is a call out, is too much of technology also for an HR professional. Like I said, it's a double-edged sword.
Right.
Make sure that technology doesn't alienate you.
Correct.
Because in the end, that touch, that feel, that being there is important, and you just can't be an email ID or a phone number at the end of the line. Right? How do you balance that? I think that's what we have to learn. Some people go on the other extreme, some don't. I think that's one of the, and I think finally is technology is in every sphere of life. I always say, irrespective of HR, if in an organization your role doesn't have a digital element, you are either in the wrong role or you won't have that role for the next 2 years.
Right, absolutely. And actually in markets like the US now, there are HR technology. There are positions for HR technology, which doesn't have to be HR professional. It could be someone from another function, but they are actually creating. There's 15 to 20 applications that enterprises are using in HR tech. So you have specialists who've been hired as the HR tech person within the company, and they may report to whoever. So that was great, Amit, and I'm sure this will inspire a lot of HR professionals out there who are watching this video to really figure out their careers and say that, look, what does it take for them to have a seat at the table as well as potentially become a CEO in the future. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for having me.